Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joan Benz, the program coordinator for Sharp Again. We are here for our presentation, Vibrant Aging, Reducing Stress for a Healthy Life. I would like to note that the information in this presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please see a licensed and qualified medical professional for your medical needs. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we'll answer those at the end during Q&A. And now I'd like to introduce and welcome our speaker, Myra Oney. Myra is a certified holistic health coach, certified brain health longevity specialist, and a Reiki master teacher. Myra is also one of our foundational coaching program coaches. You'll hear more about that program at the end of the presentation. Myra focuses her practice on helping clients prevent memory loss and maintain their mental acuity and overall health. So thank you, Myra, for joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much, Joan. And I'm excited to be here, especially at this time, to talk about reducing stress for a healthy life as part of a vibrant aging mindset. So I want to start out here there we go. Okay, so first of all, let's start out by talking about what stress is. Okay, so stress is the term that's used to describe how we react physically and emotionally to tensions and pressures. So we all have stress, right? You can't avoid stress. But what really matters is how we handle it so that it has the least impact on the health of our body and our brain. I want to talk for a minute about a couple different kinds of stress. So the first one is good stress, and you might never thought about stress in terms as how can it possibly be good? But the fact of the matter is that some stress really is good and necessary because it motivates you to get things done. Okay, so it gets you to appointments on time, it helps you meet deadlines and finish projects, and it's also what kicks in when you're in a dangerous situation, like you need to run from a tiger. But the thing about good stress is that it's temporary. Okay, once the situation is done, once it's over, your body and your mind go back to being in balance, to being stable. Now, bad stress, on the other hand, is stress that affects you negatively, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it's chronic, meaning that your body and your brain are in a constant state of fight or flight, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So this is the kind of stress that we're going to focus on because this is what can really affect your health. So let's talk for a minute about the fight or flight response, which is a way that we describe what our brain experiences when we're under stress. And the fight or flight response is actually 5 different things. So the first one is fight. And this might be actually your very first response to an unexpected stressor. Fight is where you feel angry, overcharged, aggressive, and in a terrible mood. And so this could possibly be your very first stress response. The next one would be flight. Okay, so and flight is when all you want to do is just run away. You just want to run away from whatever it is. So fight or flight are the 2 most common responses to stress. The next response is freeze. Okay, so freeze is where you just feel like you're frozen in place, like you can't do anything. This might be a secondary response to fight or flight, or it might be the first thing that happens. But it's important to just know that freeze can be a stress response. The next one is called flop. And once again, this is something that a lot of people might not realize is actually a stress response, but it's where you have no energy. You're very tired. Maybe all you want to do is just stay in bed all day with the sheets over your head. This is a stress response. And the last one is faint. Now, this is a pretty extreme stress response, but it does happen where basically your body and your mind just shut down and you faint. Now, Any of these can be a normal stress response, maybe with the exception of faint, which is pretty extreme. The thing is that they should be temporary. Okay. If this is going to be a good stress response, it shouldn't be more than about 90 seconds, and then you're back in balance. It's when these responses become a chronic way that you deal with stress, especially if it's the same stress over and over again. That's when it becomes chronic and you really need to pay attention. So let's take a look at how stress affects your body, both physiologically how stress expresses, how stress affects your body physiologically. So let's take it from the beginning. So the first thing that happens is there's a trigger, okay? A situation or an event triggers a stress response. Now, the thing is that as we get older, our bodies react more intensely to stress, and its effects on our health can become more toxic. And once triggered, our bodies take longer to get back to baseline. Um, so we start with the triggering event. The next thing that happens is hypothalamus signals the pituitary and adrenal glands to release cortisol, which is called the stress hormone. Now, in adults, the cortisol surge is stronger, and we take a lot longer to return to our normal baseline. This causes inflammation and it weakens muscle signaling and it weakens the immune system. So you can see if your body stays in this state, you release a lot of cortisol, you don't go back to normal, it can cause a lot of health issues. The last thing that happens is we get an adrenaline surge. So the brain signals the body to release adrenaline, which is called the fight or flight hormone. And what this does, it increases blood flow and blood pressure. Now, in older adults, this blood pressure could take much longer to return to normal, which can increase the possibility of stroke. I'm sure you've heard of people who have had a stroke when they have a sudden, when they're under a lot of stress or even have a sudden stress, because their blood pressure raises and their body is less able to regulate it. Now, the good news is that older adults are better at handling and avoiding stressful situations. Okay, we have life experience, self-knowledge, and a time perspective that many younger people don't have. Older adults are 50% more likely than younger adults to use coping techniques that they learned over a lifetime. So that's the really good news. The kind of not as good news is that older adults are more prone to chronic stress, thus causing repeated stress responses that can cause wear and tear on the body. So let's talk for a minute about some of the factors that can cause stress. And right up there at the top, we have retirement. Because a lot of people, we think that, retirement, I can't wait. It's going to be so great. I'm going to be able to sleep late, do whatever I want to. But retirement can also bring with it a lot of stress. For one thing, your finances may change and they may be somewhat reduced, and that can cause a lot of stress. You may decide to move, whether it's because you want to downsize or you want to move closer to family. Moving at any age is very stressful, but especially I think as we get older, because if you've lived somewhere for a long time, if you've raised in a community, or if you've raised your family in a community, you've been working there, when you move away, you're going to lose a lot of these social connections. Plus just the stress of moving. So moving is another stress factor. Loss of friends, family, and loved ones, especially as we get older. This is, this becomes unfortunately something that happens more frequently. It can be very stressful. Changes in health, especially if you are diagnosed with a particularly serious health issue or a chronic health issue, changes to your health can be very stressful. Divorce, marriage, parenting, changes in relationship. These also, once again, stressful at any age, but especially as we get older, they can be even more stressful. And, more and more grandparents are becoming caregivers for their grandchildren. And if you're 73, 74 years old, and all of a sudden you're taking care of a 3-year-old, oh boy, that could be very stressful. And the last thing is caregiving. In this case, this is caregiving for for someone who is, if you're taking care of, a spouse or a loved family member or even a friend, caregiving can be immensely stressful. And I put social isolation and loneliness in its own bubble here, because we're just have started to understand really almost since the pandemic in particular, how social isolation and loneliness can affect your stress level and your mental health. So now the thing to understand is that social isolation and loneliness are different. Okay, so social isolation is actually more of a measure of how you are interacting regularly with other people or not. Loneliness, on the other hand, is a feeling of distress about your lack of social connection. And that can be true whether you are by yourself or you're in the center of a dance floor. If you feel that you are disconnected from people, that's loneliness. And that's sort of the most important factor because some people are introverts, right? They prefer not to be with a lot of people, but they don't feel lonely. So this is something to really examine that sort of difference there. Social isolation is on par with smoking and obesity, over 2 times more likely to develop cognitive issues, and it is a leading cause of depression. Now, I know that Joan had asked you to grab a piece of paper and a pencil to take notes. And if you didn't do that, if you've got something nearby, what I'd like you to do is take a look at factors that can cause stress and just jot down for yourself something that may currently be causing you stress. And maybe it's not even on here because, there are a lot of things that can cause stress and some of them can be much more personal. Um, but just, it's really important for you to identify what's causing stress. You have to know what it is before you can do something about it. So go ahead and take a moment and jot down what might be causing you stress. Okay, so let's take a look for a moment at how lifestyle factors can affect your stress levels and how stress can affect your lifestyle. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is nutrition. All right, so have you ever heard of stress eating? I'm sure you have. Um, when you're under stress, you are less likely to make healthy food choices. And sometimes it might be intentional. You might say, you know what? I never do this just for today. I'm going to go and eat a pint of ice cream. Okay, well, you made that choice. Hopefully, tomorrow you will unmake that choice. But you can understand how, when you're under stress, you might make less healthy food choices. If you think a pint of ice cream will make you feel better, you're almost certainly going to reach for that rather than a piece of fruit. And if you're constantly reaching for a cup of coffee to keep you awake, that caffeine can make you feel jittery and stressed out. Many more examples, but I think you get the idea about how stress can make your diet worse and your diet can make stress worse. The next thing is sleep. If you're worried or stressed out about something, you are less likely to get a good night's sleep because your brain might just keep thinking about this thing over and over and over again. Likewise, the lack of sleep can leave you feeling tired and unable to cope with daily stressors. I'm sure you've noticed this. If you get a bad night's sleep the next day, you may be much more irritable and less able to handle stress. The next thing is exercise. So, exercise has been found to be extremely effective as a stress reliever, as well as in treating clinical depression. However, if you don't have an exercise routine, even if it's something as simple as walking, you are less likely to turn to it as a way to relieve stress. In fact, exercising, going to the gym might be the very last thing you have on your mind. But getting up and moving is far better than brooding on a problem, and it can help you put you in a better frame of mind. Because for one thing, when you are exercising, first of all, you're more focused on that brain-body interaction, and you're also releasing feel-good hormones. So exercise Even if you just go for a walk, it's a great way to help relieve stress. And the last one, as we talked about before, is social activity. If you're under a lot of stress, you most likely won't feel like getting out and socializing with people. And yet, like exercise, making an effort to be around people who will be supportive of you can help you lift your mood and clear your mind. So, you might not feel like going to some big party or something, but you might want to reach out to friends and just be around people. Um, so yeah, so you can see here, and once again, this is just a very brief overview, but you can see how diet, exercise, and sleep stress can affect both of them. So once again, on your sheet of paper, if you see if you see how stress may be affecting one of these lifestyle issues, one of these lifestyle areas for you, just make a note of it. Once again, it's just sort of noticing for yourself, oh yeah, you know what? When I'm under stress, I do not eat well, or I don't sleep well, or I let go of my exercise routine. But just make a note of that. Okay, so let's talk now that we've talked about what stress does to your body and your brain, and and to your body, your brain, your healthy lifestyle, and what some causes of stress are. Let's take a look at ways to reduce stress. Well, the first one we already did, right? Identify the stressors in your life. If you don't know what it is, or you haven't really, you might know, but you haven't acknowledged what it is that's causing stress in your life, it's hard to do something about it. And sometimes something you don't want to admit that's causing you a lot of stress, but when you stop to think about it, it is. The next thing to do is, well, practice mindfulness in daily activities. Well, what does this mean? Well, perhaps you've noticed that if maybe you're standing at the kitchen doing something like doing dishes, something, a kind of a routine thing, and all of a sudden, your mind is up into the future. You're really, really worried about something that you think might happen. You don't know it's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet, but you're worried about it. You're afraid something's going to happen in the future. And all of a sudden, you start getting that stress response. Your heart starts beating faster. You start breathing faster. You're worried about something in the future. Or maybe you're going over something that happened in the past that suddenly pops up in your mind. And that thing about your past is causing that same kind of stressful reaction. But once again, it's over. You can't do anything about it, right? So practicing mindfulness would be bringing your brain back into the present, just bringing it back to whatever it is you're doing. Okay, whatever it is you're doing. If you're washing dishes, how are you washing those dishes? If you're gardening, how are you pulling those weeds? But just bring yourself back into the present to to get rid of those stressors from the future and the past, and just come here to where you are, focus on what you're doing, breathe, and bring your body back to a normal state. Connect with your tribe. Okay, so once again, what does this mean? Well, your tribe is a group of people who you enjoy being with, and this may be a formal group. Could be like a book club, or a group in your place of worship, anything like that, or it could be just a group of friends that you like to get together with. But keeping connected with your tribe is really important. Once again, this is keeping your social connections. Stay curious. Okay, this is an interesting one. How can staying curious reduce your stress? Well, this has a lot to do with being judgmental, which used to actually be what this said. What this means is that often we don't really realize this, but when we start judging whether it's a person or a situation or whatever it is, that causes us a lot of stress. It really like shuts our brain down and causes us a lot of stress. Whereas if we can stay curious and instead of saying, being judgmental about something, you say, I'm really curious about, it opens up your mind and gets it going a different direction, and it kind of shuts down that stressful response. Find ways to be of service. So research has shown that people who have a purpose in life and have found ways to be of service live healthier, happier, and longer lives. So what might that be for you? Does it mean going and volunteering with an organization that you feel strongly about? Or does it mean offering to watch your grandchildren or walk your friend's dog or just do something of service for people in your community? But this is a wonderful way to reduce stress as well as get you out and being with people. And investigate and learn stress reduction techniques. So that's what we're going to look at next. So most of these you probably have heard of before, but maybe you haven't thought about all of them. So the first one is talk about your feelings. So whether that is with a therapist or a trusted friend or family member, talking about your feelings can just getting things off your chest as opposed to keeping them bottled up inside can be immensely helpful. Listen to music. So any kind of music that can lift your mood, whatever it might be for you. And just it's actually kind of interesting to note that classical music has been found to be extremely beneficial to brain health. But any kind of music that you enjoy can help just soothe your mind and get you out of that stress response. Manage your time. Now, a lot of people don't really think about this as being some way to manage stress. And this can be sort of a revelation for people, but think about how managing your time can maybe take away some of your daily stress. If you have a calendar that you write all of your appointments on, so you're not worried about missing something, if you have, if you're involved in projects, whether it's a work project or a home project, blocking out time and saying, this is when I'm going to do this thing. Well, that's great because you've got that time blocked out in your calendar, so you're not constantly worrying about when you're going to do it or if you'll get it done. Many other examples of how managing your time can help you manage your stress, but this is something that people kind of go, oh, yeah, that's really simple, and that would really be helpful. Exercise regularly. We talked about um, regular exercise. I read something once where a doctor said if exercise could be put into a pill, he'd never have to prescribe anything else. It strengthens your body. It strengthens your balance, your coordination, gets everything moving and is really a wonderful way whether you're exercising at home or going to a gym or walking with friends. Exercise is really a wonderful way to reduce stress. Meditation, yoga, and spiritual practice, much researched and experienced um, evidence about how each of these things really can reduce your stress response. And we're actually going to do a short meditation later on that hopefully, especially if you're not a meditator, you can see how this might be helpful to you. But meditation, yoga, spiritual practice, whatever that might be, um, can be extremely helpful. Spending time in nature. So once again, what a wonderful way to reduce stress. Going out and walking on, a path in the woods, or even, believe it or not, just sitting next to a plant. If you don't have a place where you can really get out in nature, even just sitting surrounded by plants or a plant, they just have a wonderful rhythm, a wonderful peacefulness, and plus they exude different chemicals that are stress reducing. Obviously, if you can get out among trees and spending time in nature, this is a wonderful way to reduce stress. There are actually some countries now, I think Scotland is one of them, where doctors can write a prescription that says go walk in nature because they know how important this can be. Get better sleep, something that pretty much everybody would say, yeah, getting better sleep, that's a big one, and you understand the value of that. So you might ask, how can you get better sleep? And that's something that we actually talk about that. We have a little module about that in our foundational coaching program. We talk about ways to get better sleep. There are many changes you can make to your environment, as well as breathing and downtime routines that can help you get better sleep. Big stress reducer. And this last one I really love. It's laugh more. Laughing is, I mean, who thinks about that? Laugh more. But it's really important because laughing actually helps release these endorphins that make you feel good. When you laugh, it's a natural response that these endorphins are released and you start to feel good. It also changes your breathing patterns because many times when we're stressed, we get into a very shallow breathing pattern and we don't even notice it. And being able to change that breathing pattern, whether it's through breath work or meditation, or if you're not into any of that, just laugh. And so how do you do that? So watch a funny movie, um, read something funny, read funny literature. There's also a thing called laughing yoga that a lot of people, when I've talked about this, they've gone, oh, laughing yoga, what is that? If you're curious about that, take a look on YouTube because there are a lot of great laughing yoga videos that can get you going. And the other thing is you can actually just start laughing. You can just start laughing. And it doesn't, and you don't really even have to have anything to laugh at. But kind of like with yawning, when you start laughing, you just keep going. So, you know what? Try it. Maybe it's a little bit different, something you haven't heard of before, but it can be really, really helpful. So, what are we talking about here? Keep your mind actively engaged and find a variety of activities to challenge your brain. Okay, this will not only reduce your stress levels, but is also good for good for strengthening your memory and your mind. So, first thing, embrace novelty and change. Okay, nothing in life is more certain than change. And sometimes we might really not like that change, but learning to embrace it or learning to live with it on our terms can really be extremely, rather than locking down, you flow. So embracing novelty and change. It can also be a really good brain exercise. Have a problem-solving mindset. So what this means is that rather than having a mindset where when a stressful situation comes up, you become a victim of it, okay, where you clamp down and you become a victim and you just can't think of any way out of this. If you have a problem-solving mindset, if you say, okay, this is a stressful situation that's come up, rather than let it take me over or rather than being a victim of it, I'm going to figure out how I can solve it. That goes back to also curiosity. Okay. This thing has happened. I'm curious about how I can solve this problem instead of collapsing, instead of going into fight or flight, instead of fighting, flight, fainting, flopping, whatever. No, you're going to figure out what you can do about it. It's being proactive. Avoid an over-reliance on routines. Now, certainly there are a lot of routines that are very comforting, and routines that help us make sure that certain things get done. But you don't want to become over-reliant on a lot of routines because what happens when that happens is you get into this rhythm, you get into a cycle that can be very, very, very difficult to break out of. And when you are over reliant on certain routines, you can't break out of them. This actually can cause stress because you might say, Your routine might be so set that you say, no, I have to do this before I can go and do this other thing that I know will make me feel better or make me, make me less stressed. So just watch being over reliant on routines. Be mindful of negative thinking. That's pretty straightforward. When you find yourself thinking negative thoughts, go back to, do you need to look at having a problem solving mindset? Do you need to look at being more present? Is that negative thinking coming from thinking about the past and the future? Be mindful of that negative thinking and really consider what it's doing to you, and how you might change it. This last thing is try activities that combine the brain and the body. So once again, research has shown that activities that combine the brain and the body are the most effective. So just sitting and doing a crossword puzzle, it's okay. But if it becomes a routine, if it becomes something you do over and over and over again, it loses its effectiveness. And plus, you are basically just losing your brain, although you are using your hand to write. But anything you can do that combines your brain and your body that makes that connection, first of all, it's going to make for a stronger brain, and it's also going to help lift you out of whatever stress you may be under. So whether it's dancing, learning a musical instrument, a foreign language, or a new skill such as photography, um, learning how to play pickleball, learning even just like dancing around your kitchen. But try these activities that combine the brain and the body. Uh, that is the most effective thing that you can do. So if you're wondering, well, a foreign language, yeah, that's kind of all in your brain, but no, because you have to translate that into speech. So see what you can find, maybe, and explore something new, maybe something you haven't tried before, but you're really interested in. That would be the way for you to go. Okay, so now I'd like you to take a look back at that worksheet and where you wrote down what your stressors are and how stress is affecting your health. And I'd like you to think about what's something that you might do to reduce stress in your life. So I've talked about a lot of different possibilities. Hopefully you've identified a stressor, you've identified what it's doing to your lifestyle and your health. So now what's something that you might do? And if you're feeling like you would like to share what you've come up with, that's always one of the big values in a presentation like this, since we're not like sitting in a room where we can actually have a conversation. Um, Go ahead and put it in the chat box. I'd love to hear what people have come up with. And Joan, I actually can't see the chat box, so if somebody puts something in there, if you could just let me know.
Well, I added drawing, sketching, and painting.
Oh, nice,
Um,
nice. Yeah, that's a very mind body activity, and certainly can be very relaxing.
and just the fact that I have amassed so many um, art supplies over the years kind of stresses me that I haven't used them. So if I use them, I want
Right?
them. Anne said coloring and coloring books for grown-ups.
You
Also
know what?
fun.
That's such a perfect thing, coloring and coloring groups for grown-ups, because you can do it even if you feel that you don't have like creative. Some people really don't think they're creative, and I don't know why, but some people really think they're not creative. Um, But it doesn't matter, because like a drawing book with crayons, what a wonderful thing. I love that myself, actually, when
Mhm.
I need to do something soothing and stress relieving.
And it's fun with watercolor pencils or watercolor crayons because then you can blend them.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I
Uh,
love watercolor crayons.
Another suggestion or another idea, trying out new forms of exercise, ballet bar, Pilates. Um,
That's great.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, trying out new forms of exercise, especially ones that I mean Pilates is great. As we get older, that core strength starts to go away. And that can be so important for stability. But yeah, but investigating any kind of exercise that you're interested in, that's great.
yeah. Tammy said she'll learn new music, do yoga, and walk in nature, and also get back to playing her piano. She tends to forget about uh,
Oh, wow.
piano.
That's great, Tammy. Yeah, I know you're a harpist and
Mm.
so that I'm sure has a lot of soothing for you. But yes, finding other things and like getting back to your piano is great. And walking in nature, that's wonderful.
And I'm going to stop reading about politics and start reading fiction.
Perfect. Ooh, that's a big one. Yes, yes, yes. We don't have politics can just go away now. Yeah, reading more fiction is really wonderful. And you know, I don't know why this just popped in my head. I don't listen to audiobooks, but listening to audiobooks while you're sitting in the park and
Mhm.
being in nature.
Yeah.
Um,
I also find listening to opera is very relaxing because unless you understand Italian or German, it's just syllables. It's not words.
yep, that's true. That's
Um,
true.
mhm.
Interesting.
uh, Tammy also said commit deeper to her meditation practice, and Anne
Yes.
is thinking of joining book clubs.
Oh, great.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Book clubs are really wonderful. Because you get that social interaction as well as that commitment, right?
Hmm. Yep.
To read a book and to be in an open conversation with people. That's great. Okay. Anybody else have something they'd like to share? These are all really wonderful, wonderful comments. Okay. So we're gonna move in just a minute into a little guided meditation. I hope that from what you wrote down, you have maybe discovered a little bit more about your causes of stress, and ways that you might be able to reduce it. That that would be a wonderful thing for you to take away from this webinar. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so what I wanted to do today is a really simple guided meditation. Um, So even if you don't meditate or you haven't been successful at it, I don't know what being successful at meditation really means, except that you do it or you don't do it. Um, this meditation is easy and it's something that you can do on your own. Okay, that's what I wanted to give you. It's not something you have to go to an app and listen to, but something you could actually do on your own. It combines. It's mostly a breath meditation. Um, And the key to meditation is that you will almost certainly find your mind going off somewhere else. And that's actually the key to meditation is noticing your mind went somewhere else and just bringing it back. That's what it's about. Okay. I would say that unless you were real Buddha, you're not going to be able to stay in a meditative state for a very long time. But it's that action of noticing that your mind went somewhere else and just gently and compassionately bringing it back to the breath. So let's see what time. Okay, so meditation needs to be something you do with intention. And one of the ways that you set your intention is by how you're sitting, or what we call taking your seat. So what I'd like you to do is just wherever you're sitting, sit up as best you can. If you can, sit with your back away from the back of your chair. If you can't do that comfortably, that's okay. But put your feet flat on the floor, not crossed, and put your hands, palms down on top of your thighs. And just go ahead and close your eyes and begin to take gentle breaths in and out through your nostrils. Notice the cool, dry air as it goes in, and the warm, moist air as you exhale. That's the beginning. Just simply notice that and put your full attention on it. Now, on your next breath, bring your attention to the center of your throat and breathe with your attention at the center of your throat. With your next breath, move your attention to your right shoulder and take a breath there. To your right elbow, take a breath. Your right wrist, one breath. Your right palm, take one breath. Your right fingertips, take two breaths. Your right palm, take a breath. Your right wrist. Your right elbow. Your right shoulder. Your left shoulder. Your left elbow. Your left wrist. The palm of your left hand. Take two breaths into your left fingertips. One breath into your left palm. Your left wrist. Your left elbow. Your left shoulder. And now take a breath in the center of your chest. At the navel center. at the base of your spine, at your right and left hip, your right and left knees, your right and left ankle, and 2 breaths at your right and left toes. Now, on your next breath, imagine that you are breathing from your toes in a sweeping breath all the way up to the crown of your head. And take 2 or 3 sweeping breaths all the way up through your body, from your toes to the crown of your head. On your next breath, inhale up to the center of your forehead. And bring your attention to the center of your forehead. Now allow your brain, allow your mind and your breath to just rest there. This is the natural home of the mind, a place where it can go to rest, relax, and regenerate. So let's just spend a couple of moments in silence with your mind in the center of your forehead. You find your mind wandering, just bring it back to the feeling of the breath going in and out through your nostrils. And now bring your hands together at the center of your chest. And raise your hands in front of your face and open your palms. And then open your eyes and become aware once again of your surroundings. Become aware also of how you show up in the world. And that the more stable and peaceful you are, the more stability and peace you're going to find around you. So go ahead and lower your hands. And that's our meditation. So I hope that you enjoyed that. Once again, it's a it's an easy thing to do yourself. You can make it as long or as short as you have time for. Um, but I hope you enjoyed that. So coming back into the present and finishing up this webinar. If you enjoyed this meditation, we have actually several recordings on our YouTube site. that you can go to. Some of these I do, some have done, Vibhu Nagral, who's a board member, has also recorded a number of things. We have Awaken Energize, which is a 14 session series. Don't Hesitate, Let's Meditate, which is an 8 session series that offers a daily practice to restore and maintain your calm and inner peace, it says there. And De-Stress with the Breath, which is a 5-day challenge. Learning pranayama or breath techniques, which is basically what this was a pranayama technique. Breathing practices and mindful practices in just 20 minutes a day. That one that we did, I would say, was probably, I don't even know how long it was. It was maybe about 5 minutes, a little bit longer. So if you're interested in going onto YouTube and looking at what else we have to offer to continue a meditation practice, or maybe find something different for your practice, please take a look at this. I also wanted to mention our Stay Sharp Foundational Coaching Program, which I kind of alluded to a little bit. This is a 6 session group coaching program and includes 2 one-on-one coaching sessions, one at the beginning, one at the end. We offer education and resources, but really the important thing about this is that we do group coaching. Okay. So it's not even so much about the information as it is about the support, and the support and community that you get from the other people in the group. The group size is limited to 8 people. Um, and the program cost is only $99 for 6 group sessions and 2 one-on-one sessions with your coach. The program value is $450, so it's actually a great value. And our next session begins on January 28th and will be Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. Important thing to note is the deadline for registration is Monday, January 13th. We put it ahead like that so that we have time to make the one-on-one appointments and make sure that everybody gets heard. This program also includes a workbook, which is a printed 32-page workbook that you get physically in the mail, that helps guide you through the program as well. We have an upcoming webinar on Thursday, December 5th, how wintertime sleep affects our bodies and brains. So if sleep was one of the things that is affecting your stress level, then please make sure and join us for our upcoming webinar. Okay, questions and answers. Does anyone have any questions about what we covered today?
You can put them in the chat or unmute yourself and shout them out.
Shall I
Um,
stop sharing? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
Anne had asked if you could make a video of that meditation, but I did let her know that it's very similar to the ones on our YouTube channel and those playlists. And I will include those links in my recap that goes out tomorrow.
Okay, great. Great. Yeah, let's see if you find, I'm pretty sure that we have something very similar on the YouTube channel. I'm sure that I probably did something similar on one of those recordings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll also remove your spotlight for you.
There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And basically one of the reasons I like doing this with people is because if you stop to think about it, you're really just focusing your breath on different major parts of your body. Okay. So if you just think about breathing and bringing the attention to your nostrils and then starting to work your way down, and it doesn't have to be a particular order. Maybe you want to bring attention to your jaw, maybe you've got tension there, or to your throat, or, you can make this work however you need it to work. The idea is to make sure you take a purposeful breath and you bring your attention to that spot.
Well, thank you,
Anybody?
Myra. I, I don't
Sure.
see any more questions.
Okay.
So thank you so much. This was very relaxing,
Okay.
uh,
Great. Well,
helpful.
I hope that everybody got something out of it, and that you try the meditation. Don't call it meditation if that word's doesn't resonate with you, just call it mindful breathing or whatever works for you.
Okay, and I'm going to stop our recording now.
Okay.